Hi everyone. In our previous video we have discussed about functional interfaces in Java, and now we will discuss about how we can implement these functional interfaces in REST assured. So we have discussed about these four types of interfaces: functional interfaces, predicate, supplier, consumer, and function. So predicate, it will return a data type, it will return new boolean. Then the supplier will, as the name specifying, it will supply you something, so it will not take any data type, it will provide you a return type. Consumer will consume the data, so it will take the data type but will not provide you anything, will return void. And then function will take a input, perform some transformation on that, and then will return the output back to you, right? So all of these functional interfaces have, because these are functional interfaces, as we discussed earlier, these will have one abstract method. Predicate has get test method. It will give you a boolean, and as discussed, it will take some data type. Similarly, supplier, it will return you the data type, will take nothing, it will have a get as the abstract method name. And similarly, consumer has accept as the abstract method name, and then the function, it will have apply as the abstract method name. So now, as per the definition that we have discussed, how we can use and utilize these functional interfaces in REST assured. So for predicate, as we know that it will return some kind of boolean, right? There are different application of it, but the most common is when we are talking about some assertion, right? With help of stream, of course, we can always use it with filtering. There is a filter method that we have discussed in the first lecture of this series. So of course, with whenever we are filtering data, we are using predicate in that context, but apart from that, we can use it for the some basic generic assertions. And then for supply will provide you some object, so there can be some initial state of object. You can perform some kind of more modification on that particular object, maybe assign some more properties, and then can return the final output to the end user. One common example is request specification. It will have a lot of headers, it will take some auth, some bearer token, or it will have the base URL, right? So those are all things you can define for the request specification object within the supplier, and then you can pass it to the end user. Now for the consumer will consume the data that you are passing, so it will not return you anything. How we can use it? We can have the response object. We can print the status code, we can print the response body to the console, or maybe to some external log file, right? And then we have function interface. So as we discussed, for performing some kind of transformation, for example, converting some specific property to uppercase to lowercase, or some other kind of transformation, right? So now let us discuss all these four uses with the help of a demo. So for that, I will move to IntelliJ. What I have done here is I have created a test method for REST assured. So as we were discussing, the very first thing is we need to initialize our request specification, right? And that we can do with the help of supplier. Here I have used this test site, which will have like test API, which have user's endpoint, which will give you some user data, user object with different attributes, right? So for now, I have configured this request specification as per this. And of course, in the real-time application, you will have more properties that you can define here. So here I have just defined a supplier, which will return request specification, right? And it will take nothing. That's why you see blank brackets here. And then we are just creating a request specification object, how we created, defining all the property within it, and then with this help of arrow, uh, our Java will understand, yeah, we are trying to return this particular instance, and we have already defined that it will be of type request specification. The next thing, consumer, it will take the response as the data type, and then it will not return you anything, so we can use this particular object to print our status code, print our request body to the console. Then the third thing was for performing some kind of transformation. Maybe you have extracted some particular list of attribute from your response, and then you want to perform some transformation and then perform some assertion on that transformed object, right? So for that you can just like in our case we are just converting some list of item to uppercase, right? So that's how we can use it. Then the next thing is predicate, as we were discussing, to perform some kind of assertion. So if I go here to the response, I can see we have id here and we have username here, and the last id, suppose the requirement is something like that id maximum object this particular response can have is 10, so id will not go more than 11 then, right? id maximum id is 10, so id shall not reach to maybe for example a number 11, right? And then username, as we know that username are uh, not supposed to contain space, so that is one basic test also we can include in this particular predicate. So what I'm saying is here is check user response. So there can be further assertions as well that you want to include with your response, some generic responses, right? So in this case I have included these two assertions. So I am taking response object, right? And then what I am doing, I am converting, I am first fetching all the IDs out of it with the help of JSON path, and then I'm fetching all the usernames, and then I'm using the stream to check like I'm doing that all the ID which are there within my stream of ID are less than 11. Again this all match, if you see, this all match is again taking a predicate, right? And so it will take do the comparison here, whether id is less than 11 then it will return you true, otherwise it will return you false, and then all match functionality will kick in to see whether everything has returned true or not, right? Then we have again used and in this case I have used none match. So there are a lot of methods defined in this stream API. We will touch base upon them one by one, but as of now these are like the name of these are self-explanatory: all match, none match. So none match is saying that none of the items that you will be having within your username stream, right? None of the item will contain a space. And again none match, it also contains a predicate, right? So here we have defined the predicate. Now talking about we have defined these interfaces now, but for invoking these we will need to call the methods that we have for these interfaces, which we have discussed here, like predicate has test, supplier has get, consumer has accept, and then function has apply. So the very first one is request specification. Here we are getting it, request specification dot get. So this is not the get call. This is not get put post call. This is not your HTTP method. This is the get method of this interface, functional interface supplier, right? And after it, we are using the get method for like for hitting the endpoint. Once we have the response, the next thing was to print the response. So for that, we have used the accept, right? And this accept is a consumer, and here we have defined our consumer interface. The next thing is transformation. So we are calling function interface, and for that we first get the name, and this is the name attribute. So what I am saying here is like get all the names and convert them to the uppercase. You can have some different requirement, but for basic demo, that's what I have done here. So I have used the two uppercase function interface, and then I have called it with the apply, and then this is the list that we are passing as input, and as we have mentioned here, like this is the return type that we will get. Then the next thing is assertion in the end for your test, and what we are saying here, like we have the test method for predicate, and this is what we are testing here, like the id, each id is less than 11, and none of the username contains the space. So if I go here and then execute it, let's see what we have. So we first initializing the request specification with the basic header setting and the base URL. It will not print you something, but the next thing, which is a consumer, is supposed to print you something, right? Here we have just request specification, then we are getting it, and here we will have something in our console because we have defined it like this. So let me extend it, and if I go to test, here we can see that we have what we have is like status code and body. So that is that what we have defined in our consumer, right? Then the next thing is like we have done this transformation, and this also, yeah, after this we shall get all the names in uppercase. So if I go down here, we can see all the names are in uppercase, right? If you see the first name uh, in your response is Line Graham, and here you can see it is in uppercase, right? And in the end we are performing the assertion. So just to check whether our assertion is working fine or not, what we can do is, let me go to my predicate, and what I will say is, here instead of 11 let me do 10, and we know that we have one ID which is not less than 10. So in our this case the test shall fail. So let me trigger it, and yeah, and here we can see at least one of the ID or username, the message which we have defined here in case of failure, is coming here. Yeah, at least one of the ID or username is not as expected. So in this video we have seen that how we can apply the functional interfaces concept with the REST assured, and in our further videos we'll see more concepts about functional interfaces, streams, and more examples of how we can utilize these concepts in automation. And that is it for this video. In case you are liking the content that I'm making, please do like, share, and do subscribe. See you in the next video, guys. Thank you.